One trend that's been going on the last several years is the decreasing sales of superhero comics. And, there's those stories that people say that, before, if a comic shipped less than 100,000 copies a month, it was canceled, or 300,000 copies a month, it was canceled. But now if a comic is shipping 55, 60, 65,000 copies a month, it's considered a pretty strong comic. And I think there's a lot of reasons for it. And I'm just going to try to break them down into what I think are like the four core reasons. One, I think all the stories that have been able to be told about these characters, with the exception of ones that have been introduced recently, have all been told. How many stories can you tell about Batman, who's been around for 90 years, or 90 something years, fighting crime? I mean, this is why you have to reboot everything every few years, because you've just run out of road. I'll give you an example. In 1980, 79 or 80, Frank Miller took over the writing and art duties on Daredevil and really redefined comics, in that he introduced a cinematic style that was low on dialogue and heavy on the storytelling and the action in the pages. And that was like my favorite comic. That was my favorite comic. And that was one of the most popular comics around. But Daredevil had only been around for 15, 16 years maybe. So you only had like 15, 16 years of backstory that you had to kind of work around. So you could introduce a character like Elektra. You could introduce the Hand. You could introduce all these characters because there was all this unexplored space that was there that you could fill in with new characters and new subplots. You can introduce Stick. You can introduce a lot of people. Now Daredevil's 59 years old as a character. I mean, what new things are you going to do? Are you going to kill Matt Murdock off? You're going to bring him back to life? Are you going to make him part of the Hand? Are you going to make him an attorney again? Are you going to break him? Are you going to fix him again? I mean, it just runs and runs and runs on and on. It's like American soap operas. The characters never die. They just live forever. And this is why like people die and they come back to life, or people get married and they get divorced and they get married again, they get divorced again, they get married again, because they just have to reboot everything to keep things fresh, because they just run out of road. And also number two, creators are kind of boxed in on what they could do. For a bunch of reasons. One, the publishers seem very unlikely, especially Marvel, to like do anything really different. Like when they were going through bankruptcy, they were just doing anything that they could do just to try to like get sales. So this is where you had the Max series come from. This is where you had series like Spider-Man's Tangled Web. They were just dying to do anything different. And different's good. But now that they're owned by Disney and the movies are making tons of money, I don't think there's any incentive to be different, to kind of like upset the apple cart. And you have that. And also, I think creators are just generally constrained because they're in this box. And in this box, you have history, you have toy lines, you have the movies, and you have decisions as far as, can we do this to a character or not do this to a character? And I think that they're really constrained. I mean, just to be fair, I think they're really constrained because they're not making just comics and being a comic publishing company like they were 30 years ago or 40 years ago. They're part of a media company, and therefore they have less free reign to do what they want to do. And also, you have all this back history that I've mentioned, kind of like constraining you. So I think that's part of it as well. I don't think creators are bringing their best ideas to Marvel and DC or other independents like Boom and IDW. I'm going to use my analogy of the 80s. Everybody talks about Frank Miller or Alan Moore or John Byrne. Chris Claremont. Back in the day, if you wanted to make it financially in comics, you had to work for one of the big two. And creator-owned comics were like this small little thing that wasn't really causing any ripples. Then in the early 90s, when the Image founders created Image, and you had these creator-owned comics, they upset the apple cart. And it was funny because you had a lot of industry guys, like you had John Byrne with just blasting the Image guys for not being part of Marvel, and it was a dumb idea. And then 2 years later, he and Frank Miller and a lot of these guys that were like throwing shade at the Image founders became part of the Dark Horse Legends imprint that showed it was creator-owned work. That didn't last very long. Another Dark Horse initiative that just seems to die an early death. The point I'm making is that back then you had to give Marvel and DC your best ideas and your best work because it was competitive, because everybody was doing it. Now with creator-owned, I would say, if I were me, I would say my best ideas for creator-owned because I want all the financial rewards for that book. And I think you see a lot of that with the superheroes, in addition to the other items that I have mentioned previously in this video. I just don't think you're getting everybody's A game. I think you're getting their B+ game. And if you're getting somebody's A game, then their A game really isn't that great. I think finally, superheroes appeal to mostly guys, and they appeal to this male power fantasy. But that group of readers is getting older and it's declining every year. And younger readers aren't interested in that. Younger readers are reading predominantly manga and YA. And that's what they identify with. And they don't identify with Superman or some guy wearing a cape or Thor or whatever. I mean, they'll watch the movies and have fun with the films, but they're not going to actually read the comics. I mean, the movies have never translated into sales. And I just think that these younger readers don't care about Thor comic. I mean, I would be more interested in reading manga, but that's what they like. I know there's a lot of people that try to put out these weird conspiracy theories that superhero sales are dropping because they're appealing to this quote unquote woke, liberal, left-wing mob, and they pander and they become political. But comics have always been political. I mean, Jack Kirby drew Captain America punching Adolf Hitler in the face on a cover before we got into World War II. And he got a lot of crap from German Americans for doing that. And there's a whole lot of history on that. But they've always been political. They've always been liberal, except that they used to be focused on guys like Peter Parker and, white guys like him. And now they're more focused on more diverse characters like Kamala Khan or dealing with Miles Morales. So it's not that they've become more political. They've just shifted the focus from the people who are in power to the people who are maybe not in power because for whatever various reasons you have. And so I'm not sure what the future is for these publishers. I know that DC is really trying to do this DC New initiative where they're really going to promote Dick Grayson as kind of like the heir to Batman, but he's still Nightwing. I know that they've kind of disbanded the Justice League, and Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman are in the comics, but they're not the predominant attractions. I know that they are also pushing Jonathan Kent, Superman's son, and they're doing these initiatives, and I think they realize that if they want to have a future in comics, they're gonna have to change the comics to hopefully appeal to the target audience that is reading comics. Now, I have no problem with them pushing Dick Grayson. That character is a fan favorite, and Tom Taylor's doing a wonderful job with that book. I haven't really read the Jonathan Kent book that he's done, but it's got great reviews. But I think that they realize that we need to kind of somehow shake things up to have younger characters that might appeal to younger readers instead of having characters that appeal to people in their 50s and 60s. I mean, I'm in my 50s, but like I'm an exception. I'm this weirdo that's reading, underground comics now that were made 60 years ago. But I think that they understand that they need to kind of shift. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if it's going to be able to pull in those readers and the superheroes. But I think that's probably the way to do it. I think just keeping on to focus on that aging demographic of people that want their superheroes male and predominantly white. It's just you're just there's that life cycle chart. You're just, appealing to the very mature phase of that life cycle. And, hopefully it works for DC because I like to see them sell more comics. I think when anybody sells more comics, it's good. It's better for the industry. I think it's better to get more younger people to read comics so this medium can keep on and going. I mean, there's always going to be a small independent group, but in a way, you want bigger publishers to sell more comics because that's how you really get into the public consciousness as far as pop culture goes. I don't think comics will ever be like the way they were 60, 70 years ago, but I think it's a way. I think the movies have shown that that's not the way to get people to read comics. So try to change the comics to appeal to the people instead of publishing the same crap over and over again and wondering, well, why aren't people reading these? There's a reason why. So that's really it. If you agree or disagree, let me know. This is just my opinion, and I'm not an expert at all, but I've been reading comics for almost 50 years. Read a lot of great comics, a lot of bad comics, and you got to stay current and see what's going on in the world to get ideas what's going on and stuff. The world is not the same way it was 30 years ago, but you have a lot of people that think it is. So anyway, that's all. Thanks for your time.